I was standing in my kitchen in Charlotte on a Tuesday morning when my phone rang with a call that would unravel everything I thought I knew about my daughter's life. The caller ID showed Lincoln Elementary School. My heart dropped. My grandson Tyler was only 7 years old, and school calls during class hours never meant anything good. Before we go further, let me ask you something. Where are you watching this from right now? And what time is it there? Drop it in the comments below. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button and leave a like. This story gets deeper than you can imagine, and you'll want to stick around for every single detail. My name is Robert Eugene Mitchell. I'm 64 years old, and I spent 38 years working as a senior mechanical engineer for Duke Energy before I retired 3 years ago. I live in a modest 3-bedroom house on Beatties Ford Road in Charlotte, North Carolina. The house isn't fancy, but it's paid off, and it's been my home for the past 19 years. More importantly, it's become a sanctuary for my daughter Jessica and my grandson Tyler ever since we lost my son-in-law, Marcus, to a heart attack 2 years ago. Jessica was 34 when Marcus died. Tyler had just turned 5. I watched my baby girl transform overnight from a vibrant woman with a quick laugh and bright future into someone who moved through life like she was walking underwater. Marcus had been a good man, a commercial pilot for American Airlines, and his death was sudden. One moment he was complaining about chest pain after a flight from Dallas. The next moment the paramedics were telling us there was nothing more they could do. He was 37 years old. The insurance money helped. Marcus had a $400,000 life insurance policy through American Airlines, plus another $175,000 from a private policy he'd taken out when Tyler was born. Jessica used some of it to pay off their mortgage on the house in Ballantyne, put $50,000 into a college fund for Tyler, and kept the rest invested. She was smart about money, always had been. I'd made sure of that, teaching her about savings and investments from the time she was old enough to understand the concept of compound interest. After Marcus died, Jessica threw herself into motherhood and her work as a nurse practitioner at Atrium Health. She worked the day shift at the cardiovascular clinic, which meant she could pick Tyler up from school most days. On the days she couldn't, I was there. That's what grandparents do. That's what family does. In our community, in our culture, we take care of our own. That's how I was raised, how my parents raised me, and how I raised Jessica. So, when Mrs. Patricia Hendricks, Tyler's second-grade teacher, called me that Tuesday morning at 9:47 a.m., I knew immediately something was wrong. "Mr. Mitchell," she said, and I could hear the careful concern in her voice, the tone people use when they're about to deliver news they've rehearsed. "I need you to come to the school if you're available. There's something I need to discuss with you about Tyler. It's nothing he's done wrong, but it's important." "Is he hurt?" I asked, already grabbing my car keys from the hook by the door. No, nothing like that. He's perfectly fine physically. But there's a situation I think you need to see for yourself. Can you come in the next hour? I told her I'd be there in 20 minutes. I live exactly 4.7 miles from Lincoln Elementary, and at that time of morning, traffic on Beatties Ford Road is light enough that I can make the drive in under 15 minutes if I hit the lights right. I made it in 13. Mrs. Hendricks met me at the front office. She was a black woman in her early 50s, the kind of teacher who'd been doing this long enough to know when something was off with a child. She had that maternal warmth that good elementary school teachers have, but today her eyes held something else. Worry. Maybe even a little fear. "Thank you for coming so quickly, Mr. Mitchell," she said, signing me in as a visitor and handing me a stick-on name tag. "Let's go to my classroom. Tyler is in the library with the class right now, so we can talk privately." We walked down the hallway, past construction paper cutouts of Martin Luther King Jr. It was mid-January, and the school was preparing for the MLK Day celebration. The walls were covered with student projects about civil rights heroes, dreams for the future, quotes about justice and equality. It reminded me of when Jessica was this age, coming home excited about Black History Month projects, asking me questions about my parents' experiences during segregation, about the changes they'd lived through. Mrs. Hendricks closed the classroom door behind us and gestured for me to sit at one of the small tables where the kids did their group work. She pulled out a large manila folder from her desk drawer. "Mr. Mitchell, Tyler is a wonderful student," she began. "He's kind to the other children. He follows directions. His reading is above grade level. But over the past 6 weeks, I've noticed something in his artwork that concerns me." She opened the folder and spread out a series of drawings on the table. My chest tightened as I looked at them. There were 12 drawings in total, done in crayon and marker on standard white construction paper. The subject matter varied. Some showed a house, some showed a park, some showed what looked like a living room. But in every single drawing, there was the same figure. A tall white man with dark hair and a sharp face. He appeared in the background of some drawings, in the foreground of others. In one drawing, he was standing in what looked like a doorway. In another, he was sitting on a couch. "I started noticing this pattern about a month ago," Mrs. Hendricks said quietly. "At first, I thought maybe it was a teacher from school, or perhaps a coach or someone Tyler saw regularly. But when I asked him about it, he said something that made me very uncomfortable." She pulled out one particular drawing. It showed a simple house with windows, and inside one window, you could see 2 figures. One was clearly meant to be a woman Tyler had drawn long hair and what looked like a dress. Next to her was the same tall man. "I asked Tyler who this man was," Mrs. Hendricks continued. "He said, 'That's the man who visits Mommy at night.' Then I asked him if he knew the man's name, and he said his mommy told him not to talk about him to anyone." My hands went cold. I stared at the drawings, my mind racing through possibilities, scenarios, explanations. Jessica hadn't mentioned dating anyone. She hadn't mentioned even being interested in dating. Every time I gently suggested that maybe it was time to think about companionship, about moving forward with her life, she'd shut down the conversation. She'd told me not even 6 months ago that she wasn't ready, that she couldn't imagine being with anyone other than Marcus. "Mr. Mitchell, I want to be very clear," Mrs. Hendricks said, her voice steady but serious. "I'm not making any accusations, and I'm not suggesting anything inappropriate is happening. But as a mandated reporter, when a child mentions secret adult visitors, especially ones they're told not to talk about, I have to take that seriously. I wanted to speak with you first before I took this further, because you're Tyler's grandfather and you're clearly very involved in his life. I know Jessica is a good mother, but something about this doesn't sit right with me." I took a deep breath, trying to push down the anger and fear rising in my chest. Anger that Jessica might be putting herself at risk. Fear that my grandson had witnessed something he shouldn't have. Confusion about why she would hide this from me. "Can I take pictures of these?" I asked. Mrs. Hendricks nodded. "I was hoping you would. I've documented them as well. Mr. Mitchell, I need to know what you're going to do with this information. If I don't see some resolution or explanation within the next few days, I'll have to file a report with Child Protective Services. Not because I think Tyler is in danger necessarily, but because this pattern is concerning enough that I can't ignore it. Give me 3 days," I said. "I'll talk to Jessica tonight. I'll get to the bottom of this." I took photos of every single drawing with my iPhone 14 Pro, making sure to get clear images. Then I thanked Mrs. Hendricks for her diligence and her discretion. She was doing her job, and she was doing it well. A child's safety always comes first. Always. I sat in my car in the school parking lot for a solid 10 minutes, just staring at those images on my phone. The same man in every drawing. Tall, dark-haired, sharp-featured. A white man. That detail stuck with me. though I tried not to let it cloud my judgment. Charlotte is diverse, and Jessica had never shown any preference one way or another when it came to dating. Marcus had been black, but love is love, and I'd always believed that. What bothered me wasn't the man's race. It was the secrecy. It was the instruction to Tyler not to talk about him. It was the fact that Jessica had looked me in the eye for months and never mentioned that she was seeing someone. I drove home slowly, trying to organize my thoughts. By the time I pulled into my driveway, I'd made a decision. I wouldn't confront Jessica immediately. I'd learned something in my 64 years on this earth: information is power, and patience beats impulse every single time. If I came at her with accusations based on a 7-year-old's drawings, she'd get defensive. She'd shut down. I'd lose any chance of understanding what was really happening. No, I needed to watch. I needed to gather information. And I needed to figure out who this man was and what his intentions were with my daughter. That evening, I went to Jessica's house for dinner like I did every Tuesday. She lived in Ballantyne, about 25 minutes from my place, in a beautiful neighborhood with good schools and safe streets. The house was a 2-story colonial with 4 bedrooms, painted pale blue with white trim. Marcus had been so proud when they bought it 8 years ago. Tyler answered the door with his usual enthusiasm, throwing his arms around my waist. "Grandpa, Mom's making spaghetti." I hugged him tight, looking over his head into the house, searching for any signs of this mysterious man. Everything looked normal, comfortable. The living room had the same furniture it had always had, the gray sectional sofa Marcus and Jessica had bought from Ashley Furniture. The oak coffee table with Tyler's Hot Wheels scattered on top of it. The family photos on the walls. Jessica came out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. She looked tired but beautiful, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, wearing navy blue scrubs from work. "Hey, Dad, perfect timing." "Dinner's almost ready." We ate at the dining room table, the 3 of us, like we did every Tuesday. Tyler chattered about school, about a science project on a solar system, about a kid named Deandra who could do a backflip on the playground. Jessica listened with half her attention, occasionally asking questions, but I noticed she kept checking her phone. Not constantly, not obsessively, but every few minutes her eyes would flick down to the iPhone sitting face down next to her plate. "Expecting a call?" I asked casually. She looked up quickly. "What?" "Oh, no, just work stuff. One of the patients we discharged today. I'm waiting to hear if his medication adjustment is working." It was a plausible explanation. She was a dedicated nurse practitioner, the kind who genuinely cared about her patients' outcomes. But something in the way she said it felt rehearsed. After dinner, Tyler went upstairs to take a bath. I helped Jessica clean up the kitchen, loading the dishwasher, wiping down the counters. We fell into the easy rhythm we developed over the past 2 years, a comfortable silence punctuated by small talk about her work, about my plans to play golf that weekend with some guys from church. I attend Greater Friendship Missionary Baptist Church on Beattiesford Road, the same church I've attended for 17 years. It's a cornerstone of the black community in that part of Charlotte, a place where generations of families have celebrated births and mourned deaths, where we've organized voter registration drives and scholarship funds and support networks for those struggling. Pastor Jerome Williams has been leading the congregation for the past decade, and he's the kind of spiritual leader who understands that faith without action is hollow. "How are you doing, baby girl?" I asked as I dried the last plate. "Really doing?" Jessica smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "I'm okay, Dad. Tired, but okay. Work is busy. Tyler keeps me on my toes. But we're managing." "You'd tell me if you weren't, right? If you needed help with anything?" She looked at me then, really looked at me, and for a moment I thought she might open up. Her mouth opened slightly, like she was about to say something important. But then her phone buzzed on the counter. She glanced at it, and something shifted in her expression. The moment passed. "Of course I would," she said. "You're the first person I'd call." I knew she was lying. Not maliciously, not to hurt me, but to protect something, to hide something. And that knowledge sat in my chest like a stone. I left around 8:30, hugging Tyler goodnight and kissing Jessica on the forehead like I always did. As I drove home down Providence Road toward I-77, I couldn't stop thinking about those drawings, about the phone Jessica kept checking, about the way she'd almost told me something and then didn't. When I got home, I did something I hadn't done in years. I called my younger brother, Leonard. Leonard Mitchell is 58 years old and spent 32 years as a detective with the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department before retiring 5 years ago. He now runs a small private investigation firm out of an office on South Boulevard. We're not particularly close, never have been, really, but we respect each other, and I knew he'd give me straight answers. "Robert," he answered on the third ring. "This is a surprise." "Everything all right?" "I need your advice on something," I said. "Professional advice. And I need you to keep this between us." There was a pause. "All right, what's going on?" I told him everything. The call from Mrs. Hendricks, the drawings, the secretive man, Jessica's behavior at dinner. When I finished, Leonard was quiet for a moment. "You want me to look into this?" he finally asked. "No," I said. "Not yet. I just want to know what you think. Am I overreacting? Should I confront her directly?" Leonard sighed. "Brother, in my experience, when people keep secrets like this, there's usually a reason, and it's rarely a good one. The fact that she's told Tyler not to talk about this man is what concerns me most. That's not how healthy relationships work. If she was dating someone genuinely good for her, why hide it? Why make it a secret from her own father and from her son's teacher?" "That's what I'm afraid of," I admitted. "Give me the address," Leonard said. "Let me drive by her place tonight, just to see if there are any cars that don't belong. I won't approach, won't make contact. Just a quiet observation. And tomorrow, if you want, I can run some basic searches, see if anything pops up. No charge." Family. I hesitated. It felt like a violation of Jessica's privacy. But then I thought about Tyler, about those drawings, about Mrs. Hendricks' concern, about the fact that I'd raised Jessica to be honest, to be open, and something had changed that. I gave him the address. At 11:43 p.m., Leonard called me back. "There's a silver Lexus ES 350 parked in her driveway," he said. "North Carolina plates, registration 7JK4829. Looked up the registration. It's a 2023 model, registered to a man named Garrett Andrew Holloway. He's 42 years old, address listed in Dilworth. That name mean anything to you?" My heart was pounding. "No, never heard of him." "Want me to dig deeper?" I closed my eyes, thinking about my baby girl, about the life she'd built, about the grief she'd carried. "Yeah," I said. "Dig deeper. I need to know who this man is." The next morning, I woke up with a decision already made. I wasn't going to let this stand. I'd spent 38 years as an engineer, solving problems, analyzing systems, finding flaws and fixing them before they caused catastrophic failures. This situation with Jessica was no different. There was a problem, and I needed information to solve it. Real information, not assumptions or anger. Leonard called me at 9:15 a.m. "I've got information," he said. "You're going to want to sit down for this." I was already sitting in my home office, the small room off my living room where I kept my computer, my engineering textbooks from North Carolina A&T State University, where I'd earned my degree 43 years ago, the framed photos of my late wife Gloria, who'd passed from breast cancer 11 years ago. "Give it to me straight," I said. "Garrett Andrew Holloway, 42 years old, divorced 3 years ago from a woman named Samantha Holloway. He works as a financial advisor with a small firm called Piedmont Wealth Management in Uptown Charlotte. On the surface, everything looks legitimate. But Robert, I made some calls to people I know. This man has a pattern. My stomach dropped. What kind of pattern? He targets widows. Specifically, widows with life insurance money or significant assets. In the past 4 years, there have been at least 3 women that I can confirm. He gets close, gains their trust, talks them into letting him manage their finances or invest their money. Then, slowly, the money starts disappearing. By the time they realize what's happening, he's moved it through enough accounts and investment vehicles that it's nearly impossible to recover. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. Has he been charged? Convicted? That's the problem. He's careful, very careful. He doesn't steal outright. He convinces them to make legal transfers, to sign documents, to authorize investments. When things go south, he can claim it was bad market performance or risky investments they agreed to. One woman tried to sue him 2 years ago. Her name is Patricia Chen. She's a widow from Huntersville. Her husband died in a construction accident, left her $380,000. She met Garrett at a grief support group. Within 18 months, she'd lost $290,000. The case was settled out of court with a confidentiality agreement, and Garrett paid back $75,000. The rest was just gone. My hands were shaking. $175,000 from the private policy, $400,000 from American Airlines. I said quietly. That's what Jessica has. That's what he's after. I bet money on it, Leonard confirmed. Robert, you need to warn her. Today. This man is dangerous. Not physically violent as far as I can tell, but financially? He's a predator. I thanked Leonard and hung up. Then I sat in that office for a long time, staring at the photo of Gloria on my desk. She'd been the one who was good at the emotional conversations, at navigating difficult family dynamics. I was the logical one, the problem solver, the engineer who dealt in facts and figures. But Gloria had always known how to reach Jessica's heart. What would you do, baby? I whispered to the photo. And then I knew. I'd do what I'd always done. I'd protect our daughter. But I'd do it smart. I'd do it with evidence, not emotion. I'd make sure that when I confronted Jessica, she couldn't deny what was happening. She couldn't rationalize it away. She couldn't defend him. I spent the next 2 days becoming an investigator. Leonard gave me the files he'd compiled on Garrett Holloway. I read through everything the divorce records showing his ex-wife had, accused him of financial manipulation during the marriage, the business licenses for Piedmont Wealth Management, the complaints filed with the North Carolina Secretary of State that hadn't gone anywhere due to lack of evidence. I also did something I wasn't particularly proud of. I drove to Jessica's neighborhood and parked down the street on Thursday evening. At 8:47 p.m., just after Tyler would have gone to bed, the silver Lexus pulled into her driveway. I watched as a tall man with dark hair got out. Even from a distance, I could see he matched the figure in Tyler's drawings. Sharp features, confident walk, expensive-looking clothes, pressed khaki pants, and a navy blazer. He let himself in with a key. He had a key to my daughter's house. I forced myself to stay in the car, to not march up to that door and demand answers. That wasn't the play. Not yet. The next morning, Friday, I called Mrs. Hendricks. I've identified the man in Tyler's drawings, I told her. My daughter has been seeing someone, and she's been keeping it quiet. I'm handling the situation, but I need a little more time to address it properly. Can you give me until Monday? Of course, Mr. Mitchell, she said, relief evident in her voice. I trust your judgment. Thank you for taking this seriously. Then I did something I'd never done before in my life. I called Jessica and lied to her. Hey, baby girl, I've got a favor to ask. You know how I've been saying I need to update my will and my investment accounts? I've been putting it off since your mother passed, but I'm finally getting around to it. Could you meet me for lunch on Saturday? I'd like to go over some financial decisions with you, get your input as a nurse who understands medical costs and end-of-life planning. Jessica agreed immediately, like I knew she would. She'd always been responsible about financial planning, always encouraged me to keep my affairs in order. We agreed to meet at Mama Ricotta's on Park Road at noon on Saturday. I spent Friday evening preparing. I printed out everything Leonard had given me. I organized it into a folder, chronological order, easy to understand. Patricia Chen from Huntersville, $290,000 lost. Angela Davis from Cornelius, $340,000, vanished into failed investment opportunities. Rebecca Thompson from Matthews, $425,000 gone, her late husband's construction business savings depleted. 3 women, 3 widows. 3 lives nearly destroyed by the same man who was now sleeping in my daughter's house, who had a key to the home where my grandson lived. Saturday arrived cold and gray, typical January weather in Charlotte. I got to the restaurant 15 minutes early and requested a quiet booth in the back. When Jessica arrived at noon, she looked beautiful and relaxed, wearing jeans and a soft blue sweater, her hair down around her shoulders. She smiled when she saw me and gave me a tight hug. "Hey, Dad, this place okay? I haven't been here in forever." We ordered. She got the chicken parmesan, I got the lasagna, and made small talk while we waited for the food. I asked about work, about Tyler, about whether she'd given any thought to taking a vacation this summer. She told me Tyler wanted to go to Disney World, that she was thinking about taking him in June. When the food arrived and we'd both taken a few bites, I decided it was time. "Jessica, I need to talk to you about something serious," I said quietly. "And I need you to hear me out before you react. Can you do that?" Her smile faded. "Dad, you're scaring me. Are you sick? Is something wrong?" "I'm fine. Physically, I'm fine. But I'm worried about you." I pulled out my phone and showed her the photos of Tyler's drawings. Mrs. Hendricks called me on Tuesday. She wanted to discuss these with me. She was concerned because Tyler told her this is a man who visits you at night, and that you told him not to talk about it. Jessica's face went pale, then red. "Dad, I can explain. His name is Garrett Andrew Holloway," I continued, keeping my voice steady. "He's 42 years old. He drives a silver Lexus ES 350, North Carolina plate 7JK4829. He's a financial advisor with Piedmont Wealth Management. And Jessica, he has a key to your house." She stared at me, her mouth open, shock and anger warring in her expression. "You've been spying on me?" "Dad, how could you?" I opened the folder and slid it across the table. "Before you defend him, before you tell me I'm overreacting or that I don't understand, I need you to look at this. Really look at it." Jessica's hands trembled as she opened the folder. I watched her face as she read through the documents. First confusion, then disbelief, then something that looked like the beginning of understanding. She went through every page: Patricia Chen's case summary, Angela Davis's police report, Rebecca Thompson's lawsuit documents, the complaints filed with the Secretary of State. When she finally looked up at me, tears were streaming down her face. "Dad, Garrett told me he was helping me. He said he could get better returns on Marcus's life insurance money. He said the savings account I had it in was losing value to inflation, that I was being irresponsible by not investing it properly." My heart broke. "How much have you given him access to?" She wiped her eyes with her napkin, her voice barely a whisper. "I opened a joint investment account with him 6 weeks ago. I transferred $200,000 into it. He said it was for a real estate development opportunity in Lake Norman, that we'd see returns of 15 to 20% within 6 months. I thought I was being smart. I thought I was securing Tyler's future. $200,000. Almost half of everything Marcus had left her. "Baby girl," I said gently, Has he shown you any documentation for this investment? Any contracts, any property deeds, any official paperwork from the development company? Jessica shook her head slowly, realization dawning in her eyes. He said the paperwork was being finalized, that it would be ready in a few more weeks. He kept saying we were getting in on the ground floor, that this was a friends and family opportunity before they opened it to outside investors. There is no development, I said quietly. Or if there is, your money isn't going into it. Jessica, this is what he does. He finds women who are grieving, who are vulnerable, who have money from their husband's death. He gains their trust, makes them believe he's helping them, and then he drains them dry. She was crying harder now, her shoulders shaking. The other diners in the restaurant were starting to look over, concerned. I moved to her side of the booth and put my arm around her. "I'm so stupid," she sobbed. "I'm so stupid." "How could I be so blind?" "You're not stupid," I said firmly. "You're grieving. You're lonely. You're trying to do your best for Tyler, and he saw that vulnerability and exploited it. That doesn't make you stupid, baby girl. That makes him a predator." We sat there for several minutes while she cried. Finally, she pulled herself together enough to speak. "What do I do? Dad, what do I do? That money is supposed to be for Tyler's college, for our future. I can't lose it. This was the moment I've been preparing for. We're going to get it back," I said. "But we have to be smart about this. We have to move carefully and quickly. First question, is your name on that investment account too?" "Yes, it's a joint account at Wells Fargo. Both our names are on it." "Good. That's good. That means you have legal access to withdraw funds. Do you have any reason to believe he's moved the money yet?" Jessica thought for a moment. "No. He checks the account on his phone sometimes when he's at the house. The last time I saw, which was Wednesday night, the full $200,000 was still showing as the account balance." "Okay, here's what we're going to do. On Monday morning, as soon as the bank opens, you and I are going to walk into that Wells Fargo branch together. You're going to withdraw every single dollar from that account and transfer it back to your personal savings account. Then you're going to close the joint account. But what if he what? Gets angry? Jessica, he's been lying to you from the beginning. He's a con artist. The moment that money is safe, his opinion stops mattering. But we need to move fast because if he suspects you're on to him, he'll transfer that money before you can stop him." Jessica nodded, her jaw setting with determination. She'd always been strong, even as a little girl. She just lost sight of that strength in her grief. Monday morning, first thing. "But Dad, what do I tell him this weekend?" "He's supposed to come over tonight. I considered this carefully. You tell him nothing's changed. You act normal. If he asks us about your day, you tell him you had lunch with your father and we talked about boring estate planning. Don't give him any reason to suspect you know what he is. Can you do that?" She took a deep breath. "Yes, I can do that. But Dad, after Monday, when the money's safe, then what? Do I just tell him to leave? Do I call the police?" "We'll call Leonard," I said. "He's already compiled all this information. He'll know the best way to handle this to make sure Garrett faces consequences. But Jessica, there's something else we need to address. Tyler." She looked at me, confused. "What about Tyler?" "Baby girl, he's been drawing this man in every school assignment for 6 weeks. His teacher is concerned enough that she was considering calling Child Protective Services. Tyler told her that you said not to talk about Garrett. That's not okay. Not for Tyler's psychological well-being, and not for his relationship with his teacher and school." Jessica's face crumpled again. "I just didn't want people judging me. It hasn't even been 3 years since Marcus died. I thought people would think I was moving on too fast, but I didn't love Marcus enough. And Garrett said it would be better to keep things private at first, until we were sure about where the relationship was going." "Of course he did," I said. "Because the more isolated you were, the easier you were to manipulate. Jessica, there's no shame in finding companionship after loss. Your mother would want you to be happy. I want you to be happy. But it has to be with someone genuine, someone honest, someone who values you for who you are, not for what you have in the bank. She nodded, wiping her eyes again. I'll talk to Tyler. I'll explain that Garrett won't be coming around anymore, and that it's okay to talk about things with his teacher. I'll call Mrs. Hendricks on Monday and explain the situation. Good. That's good. And Jessica, I want you to consider something else. After this is resolved, I think it would be good for you to talk to someone. A therapist, a counselor, someone who specializes in grief and trauma. Not because you did anything wrong, but because you've been carrying Marcus's death alone for too long. She leaned her head on my shoulder. You're right. I know you're right. I just thought I could handle it on my own. You don't have to handle anything on your own. That's what family is for. That's what I'm for. We finished lunch, though neither of us had much appetite. I paid the bill $47.82, including tip, and we walked out to the parking lot together. Before Jessica got in her car, she hugged me tight. Thank you, Dad, she whispered. Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for paying attention when I couldn't see what was right in front of me. Always, baby girl. Always. That weekend was the longest 48 hours of my life. Jessica texted me Saturday evening to let me know Garrett had come over and that she'd acted normal. Hadn't raised any suspicions. On Sunday, I went to church and prayed harder than I'd prayed in years. Pastor Williams preached on Psalm 37, verse 7. Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him. The timing felt like more than coincidence. On Monday morning at 8:45 a.m., I picked Jessica up from her house. Tyler was already at school. She dropped him off early at the before-school care program. We drove to the Wells Fargo branch on Providence Road in silence, both of us tense. Inside the bank, Jessica requested to speak with a personal banker. We were directed to a small office where a young woman named Michelle greeted us professionally. Jessica explained that she needed to transfer funds from a joint account back to her personal savings account and then close the joint account. Michelle pulled up the account information on her computer. I see this is a joint account with Garrett Holloway. For a closure and transfer of this size, we typically require both account holders to be present. My heart sank, but Jessica was ready. According to the account agreement I signed, either account holder can initiate transactions, including withdrawals and closures. Is that not correct? Michelle reviewed the account terms. You're right, Ms. Jefferson. I apologize. Either party can manage the account. I'll need to verify your identity, and then we can process the transfer and closure. This will take about 30 minutes to complete. Those 30 minutes felt like hours. I watched the clock on the wall, watched other customers come and go, watched Jessica's hands grip the armrests of her chair. Finally, Michelle turned back to us with a smile. All done. I've transferred $200,000 from the joint account to your personal savings account, ending in 7,743, and I've closed the joint account. You'll receive a confirmation letter in the mail within 5 to 7 business days. Is there anything else I can help you with today? Jessica exhaled, her whole body relaxing. No, thank you. That's everything. We walked out of that bank at 9:52 a.m., and I felt like we'd won a major battle. But the war wasn't over yet. At 2:34 p.m. that afternoon, Jessica's phone started ringing. It was Garrett. She didn't answer. He called again at 2:41 p.m., again at 2:48 p.m. Then the text messages started. Jessica, I just checked our investment account and it's showing as closed. Call me immediately. This is a serious problem. We had contracts pending on that real estate development. You just cost us a massive opportunity. I don't know what your father told you, but whatever it is, it's wrong. You need to trust me. We're partners in this. Call me. Now. Jessica showed me the messages, her hand shaking. He knows. He's angry. Let him be angry, I said. Block his number. Don't respond. He has no power over you anymore. But Garrett wasn't done. At 4:17 p.m., he showed up at Jessica's house. I was there with her and Tyler, having decided to stay for the afternoon to make sure she was safe. We heard his car pull into the driveway, heard his key in the lock. Except the lock didn't turn. Jessica had called a locksmith that morning and had all the locks changed. The house had been rekeyed for $240, and Garrett's key no longer worked. He pounded on the door. Jessica, open this door. We need to talk about what you've done. I stood in the hallway, my phone in my hand, ready to call 911 if needed. Tyler was upstairs in his room with headphones on, watching a movie. Jessica stood behind me, her arms wrapped around herself. Jessica, I know you're in there. Your father has poisoned you against me. That money was ours. You can't just steal it. I'd heard enough. I opened the door, standing in the doorway so Garrett couldn't see past me into the house. He was red-faced, furious, nothing like the smooth, confident man I'd seen getting out of his Lexus days before. Who the hell do you think you are? He snarled at me. I'm Robert Eugene Mitchell, I said calmly. I'm Jessica's father, Tyler's grandfather, and I'm the man who's about to explain something to you very clearly. That money was never yours. It was my late son-in-law's life insurance, meant to provide for his widow and his son. You manipulated my daughter during a vulnerable time, and you're lucky all we did was take back what belongs to her. I'll sue her for breach of contract. That investment opportunity was real, and she's cost me. You'll sue her with what contract? I interrupted. The one that doesn't exist? The real estate development that was never more than a story you told? Garrett, I know about Patricia Chun. I know about Angela Davis. I know about Rebecca Thompson. I know your pattern, and so does the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department. That stopped him. His face went from red to pale. Here's what's going to happen, I continued. You're going to leave this property right now. You're going to stay away from my daughter and my grandson. And you're going to hope that we don't decide to file charges or a civil suit. Because, unlike those other women, we have documentation of everything. Every text message, every false promise, every manipulation. And I promise you, if you ever come near my family again, I will make it my personal mission to see you lose your financial advisor license and spend time in prison. Do you understand me? Garrett stared at me, his jaw working. Then, without another word, he turned and walked back to his car. We watched him drive away, his silver Lexus disappearing down the street. Jessica collapsed onto the stairs in the hallway, crying with relief. I sat down next to her and held her, the way I'd held her when she was a little girl after nightmares, after scraped knees, after the inevitable hurts that come with growing up. It's over, I said quietly. He's gone. But what if he comes back? What if he won't? Men like Garrett are predators, but they're also cowards. They target people they think won't fight back. Now he knows we'll fight. Now he knows we have evidence. He'll move on to easier targets, or hopefully, he'll finally face the consequences of what he's done. Later that evening, after Tyler was asleep, Leonard came over to Jessica's house. We sat at her dining room table, the three of us, and went through everything. Leonard recorded Jessica's statement, documented the timeline, collected copies of all the text messages and bank records. I'm going to take this to a contact I have at the DA's office, Leonard said. With 3 previous victims and now a 4th who's willing to go on record, we might finally have enough to build a case. I can't promise he'll be prosecuted, but I can promise I'll do everything in my power to make sure he's investigated. Jessica nodded. Whatever it takes. I don't want him doing this to anyone else. 3 weeks passed. Life slowly returned to normal, or at least a new version of normal. Jessica started seeing a therapist named Dr. Lorraine Murphy at a practice in South Charlotte. Tyler's drawings at school changed no more mysterious men, just the usual 7-year-old subjects of superheroes and spaceships and dinosaurs. Mrs. Hendricks called to thank me for handling the situation with such care. And then, on a Thursday in early February, Leonard called me. The DA's office has opened an official investigation into Garrett Holloway, he said. They've contacted the 3 previous victims, and all 3 are willing to testify. They're looking into his business practices, his client files, everything. It's going to take time, but Robert, I think we're going to get him. I think he's finally going to face real consequences. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders that I hadn't fully realized I'd been carrying. Thank you, Leonard, for everything. Family takes care of family, he said simply. That evening, I drove to Jessica's house for our usual Tuesday dinner. We were back to our routine, the 3 of us around that dining room table. But something had shifted. Jessica seemed lighter somehow, more present. Tyler was his usual energetic self, talking about a field trip to the Mint Museum. After dinner, after Tyler had gone upstairs, Jessica and I sat in her living room drinking coffee. Dad, I've been thinking about what you said, she began. About not being ashamed of wanting companionship. About Marcus wanting me to be happy. Yeah? I'm not ready to date yet. Maybe not for a while. But I've started going to a grief support group at the church Dr. Murphy recommended. It's for widows and widowers, people who've lost spouses. And it's helping. Just knowing I'm not alone in this, that other people understand what it feels like. I squeezed her hand. That's good, baby. That's really good. And I've been thinking about something else. I want to do something with Marcus's life insurance money. Something meaningful. I'm keeping enough for Tyler's college and for our security, but I want to start a scholarship fund. The Marcus Jefferson Memorial Scholarship for kids from single-parent homes who want to pursue careers in aviation. I think he'd like that. My eyes filled with tears. He would love that. He'd be so proud of you. I learned something through all of this, Jessica said quietly. I learned that grief makes you vulnerable, but it doesn't make you weak. I learned that asking for help isn't failure. And I learned that my father is still the wisest, most patient, most protective man I've ever known. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't been paying attention, if you hadn't taken Tyler's drawing seriously, if you hadn't fought for me when I couldn't fight for myself. That's what family does, I said. We show up. We pay attention. We protect each other. Your mother taught me that. She'd be so proud of the woman you are, of the mother you are to Tyler. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, and I thought about the journey we'd been on. It would have been easy to ignore Mrs. Hendricks' call, to assume everything was fine, to trust that Jessica had everything under control. It would have been easy to confront Garrett with anger instead of strategy, to let emotion override wisdom. But I'd learned something in my 64 years, something my parents had taught me. Something the black community I grew up in had modeled for me my whole life. You survive and thrive not through aggression or impulse, but through patience, through gathering information, through community, through standing firm in your values while staying strategic in your actions. Garrett Holloway thought he could exploit my daughter's vulnerability. He thought grief made her an easy target. What he didn't account for was that she wasn't alone. She had family. She had support. She had a father who paid attention to 7-year-old drawings and knew when something wasn't right. 4 months later, in June, Garrett Andrew Holloway was arrested and charged with multiple counts of financial fraud and elder exploitation. The investigation had uncovered 7 victims, not just the 4 we knew about. The total amount he'd stolen or fraudulently obtained was over $2.3 million. His financial advisor license was revoked. Piedmont Wealth Management shut down. And Garrett was facing up to 15 years in prison. Jessica testified at the preliminary hearing, She stood in that courtroom with strength and dignity, telling her story, explaining how he'd manipulated her, how he'd exploited her grief. The judge looked at Garrett with disgust and set his bail at $500,000. Garrett couldn't make bail. He stayed in jail while awaiting trial. Justice, I realized, isn't always quick. But when it comes, when the truth finally catches up with those who've built their lives on lies, it's deeply satisfying. I'm 64 years old now, and I hope I have many more years ahead of me. Years to watch Tyler grow up, to walk Jessica down the aisle someday, if she finds real love again, to maybe meet more grandchildren. But if my time on earth ended tomorrow, I'd leave knowing I did what mattered most. I protected my family. I paid attention when others might have looked away. I had the patience to wait for the right moment and the courage to act when that moment came. That's what I hope Tyler remembers about his grandfather. Not that I was perfect, but that I showed up. That I paid attention to his drawings when they told a story his words couldn't yet express. That I loved his mother enough to fight for her, even when she didn't know she needed fighting for. And if there's one thing I want anyone hearing this story to understand, it's this. Karma isn't about revenge. It's not about making people suffer for the sake of suffering. Karma is simply the natural consequence of actions. Garrett Holloway spent years hurting vulnerable people, and eventually, those consequences caught up with him. Not because I destroyed him, but because I revealed what he'd already done. The destruction was his own creation. In the end, truth is the most powerful weapon we have. Truth, patience, family, and the wisdom to know that dignity and strategy will always defeat manipulation and greed. That's the lesson. That's what I hope stays with you long after you've finished listening to this story. Before I go, I want to thank you for being here, for listening to this journey. If this story resonated with you, do me a favor, share it with someone who might need to hear it. Leave a comment telling me what stood out to you most. And if you're not already subscribed to this channel, hit that subscribe button. These stories matter. Your engagement helps them reach people who need them. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Pay attention to the people you love. Trust your instincts. And remember that protecting your family isn't about being aggressive or confrontational. It's about being strategic, being patient, and being present. God bless you all.